Mid-season's here, and we're doing reviews on all the teams. This week, it's the teams that have the bye. Who's up first?
Well, who's up first? We did Brisbane in our previous
Mhm.
video, so make sure you go over there and you watch that video. This one, we're now for the second team, and we're talking about the Fremantle Dockers. These first two teams, both interstate. They miss out on the scrutiny that comes with being a Victorian team, but don't you worry. Here at the Centre Bounce, we are going to scrutinize them very well in these videos, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%, Joe. You look at the sides, it's just like, mate, you did some things that were fantastic, but how do you lose to North Melbourne in round 2? I just don't understand.
It is a crazy one, but we're going to deep dive into their statistics. And so let us make a go. Oh, look at Brayshaw. Look at Andy Brayshaw. Doesn't he look like a handsome fella over here? Great little slick Elvis Presley almost style hair.
Yep, I reckon he shaves his arms.
Oh, he's got to. He's got to.
They don't look hairy enough for. I look at me and it's just like, mate, what are you doing?
Get real, mate. All right,
I know.
whatever. We'll get into the performances, though. We'll stop criticizing his appearances, which is very nice. They're currently 9th on the ladder, the Fremantle Dockers, courtesy of 6 wins and 5 losses. A very bare bone percentage of 102.3. But having said that, there was nothing bare bones about their performance last week when they came here to Melbourne, they came to the MCG, and just like last year, in round 11, they got over the top of Melbourne. I reckon Freo is going to request this fixture every single year, I reckon.
Yeah, it was one of those games where we talk about teams needing a test. This was definitely a test. And Melbourne did pass. Freo passed with flying colours. I think they came back from behind as well. Really dominated. In one of those games where you go to the footy, regardless of which team you go for, you come back, your heart's pumping. It's like, mate, that was a good game. Now, looking at their percentage, 102%. It's not too bad. But they had some shocking losses at the start of the year that's really contributed to their ladder position. They should be higher up the ladder based on their last 5 or 6 weeks form. But, mate, they had a poor start to the season.
And it wasn't expected, especially considering the sort of excitement and optimism at the end of the year last year. They won a final. They came back from like 40-odd points down in that elimination final against the Bulldogs, only to end up losing to Collingwood, which is very understandable and respectable. But you did not expect them to come off to such a slow, stagnant start this year with some of the movements. They added Jackson to the side, they added O'Meara. You know what I mean? Like you would expect they got a bit better.
Yeah. I guess some of their players leaving hurt them a lot, though. They lost Akers. They lost Logan Tucker. I think the big one was probably Rory Lobb. We're going to look up the next slide just talking about their stats, but their leading goal kicker, when you lose him in a team, mate, you got to have someone to replace him that's good enough.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, we will go there. Currently, they're ranked 7th on the metrics and 10th for offense, as you're saying. They lost their number 1 goal kicker. Look who the number 1 goal kicker is now.
Jai Amos. Mate, if you only kick 19 goals in 11 or 12 games, you're really struggling. I mean, for them to get 9th on the ladder, they must be doing pretty well. I reckon they've got a few players on 18 goals, some on 17, 16, and 15. Their midfielders must be the ones stepping up because their forward line really isn't.
Yeah, when you've got a young teenager in his second year in the system leading you away for goal kicking, it is really interesting and just goes to show why their offensive rating is 10th in the league. Definitely being held up a bit by their defense. They were a defense first minded team last year, and they're now top 8 for defense, which is certainly something that they can rest their hat on. But you need to be pushing a bit higher if your offense is that low.
Yeah, and we'll talk about teams getting carried by their young superstars, mate. Freo, that's happening with them every single week. Let's check out who's doing well for them this year. Caleb Sarong, mate. Who would have picked this? The guy that was drafted, 3 or 4 years ago? Everyone knows Andy Brayshaw, and now everyone knows Caleb Sarong by the end of the year. He's elite in disposals with 30 disposals a game, elite with 13 contested possessions, 15 marks, mate, 7 clearances, Joe. There's grown men that don't get 7 clearances in a game. And he's helping out with the score involvements too with 5.5 every game. What can this kid not do?
Yeah, he's absolutely come in on fire. His rise has been astronomical, and it's been such a massive help for people like your Andy Brayshaws, who we mentioned
Hmm.
as well before, because he's not that go to in and under excavator type of player. That's this guy. This guy, Caleb Sarong, he is elite in
Yep.
both contested and clearances, and that's exactly what they needed to get the ball moving forward. Fife, he ain't no spring chicken anymore. Even though he did just today sign a contract extension, he is not going to be
I don't know
around
how that
forever.
works out for them, but mate, he's one of the players who last year Brayshaw kind of took a bit of the heat, and it really
Yeah,
kind of hurt Frio during some real crucial games. Sarong stepped up in the face of that, but also Mundy leaving as well. So, congrats,
correct.
hands off to him.
Oh yeah, the absence of the retirement of Mundy cannot be understated. I would
Hmm.
almost put him as their best player last year. The way he was so silky and smooth, and someone who really was an inspiration and a leader to people like young Jordan Clark, who was brought across from the Geelong Cats. He had a great season when he came across to them
Hmm.
last year, and now you look at his face this year. He looks like a zombie of himself.
No,
Like it's
he's
just
just
not.
not happy.
No, he is not happy at all. Mundy really was like his dad or something in that team because he's now gone below average in a number of really important statistics for someone who's playing off half back. Below average, only 2.9 rebound 50s. Below average, he's winning less than 1v1 every game. He's below average in meters gained. How is a half backer below average in meters gained? That makes absolutely no sense to me, Big J.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like for a player that came across from Geelong because he wanted more of a start, he just hasn't stepped up this year. You know, the team's got a lot younger. Maybe it's positional change, something like that's happened to him. Maybe he's just not happy other players have come in and taken his spot and kicked him out of the team. But as you say, Jordan Clark needs to lift. Otherwise, he might be looking for a third club sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. He's averaging average disposals of
Yeah.
18.2. So he's getting his hands on the bill. Obviously not a lot, but there are people getting the ball less than he is. He needs to make something happen with it. He needs his line breaking ability. He needs to run. He needs to increase those meters gained in order to give the Fremantle Dockers a bit more bounce from the back line so that they can improve their offensive rating, which is right now really low. If they can get a bit more out of Jordan Clark, he can go a long way to helping out Amos as well as the other forwards to kick a winning score. What
Yep.
sort of rating have we given these guys for this year?
Mate, we've given them a B. So as we say here, shocking start to the season. But they've bounced back in the last few games. Wins against Sydney, Geelong, and Melbourne have really helped them there and have given the team some confidence that, hey, when we play the good players, when we play the good teams, we can step up and do what Freo does.
Absolutely. It was an abysmal start, a shocking start. They couldn't win a game to save their life. The only wins they had were against some really meager, low level teams. However, it seems that they finally found their straps. They finally got into the groove. They're giving more ruck responsibilities to their new recruit in Jackson,
Mhm.
who has well and truly stepped up and adopted the mantle, especially now last week with Sean Darcy going down with injury with a hamstring. Sean Darcy was the number one head out to advantage ruckman in the comp. So you can see that they were certainly getting a lot of ball use and ball winning out of the middle of the ground, with Darcy down to Sarong, who, as we
Mhm.
discussed, was elite in winning the clearances and the contested ball, which frees up the Brayshaws of the world in order to get the ball moving forward. You expect now that they've hit their straps, that it's onwards and upwards. Do we see them making finals this year, Big J?
I think they're going to be pushing hard for it, but time
Yeah.
will tell kind of what happens. There's a lot of good teams around that, probably 7 to 10 mark, and Freo's got to be there for me.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our deep dive breakdown, mid-season review of the Fremantle Dockers. Let us know in the comments below if you think that we were a bit generous with that B ranking, or do you think we're a bit harsh and that this bounce back should have been given them at least a B plus? Let us know in the comments below.
100%. Hey guys, remember, we do the hard work so you don't have to. Bye for now.